And we are live. I think I'm having really problems with my Wi-Fi connection here, so I seem to be on a delay, but everybody can hear me. Everybody hear me okay?
Can hear you fine, Kevin.
Right, I think the picture's just off. I might actually just blank myself out because the picture's kind of freaking me out because I'm like Max Headroom. All yous are like Max Headroom on my side here, eh? So that's one for the kids. Ain't it, Max Headroom? Hello, welcome to a Friday, a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Kevin Graham and I'm joined by Lloyd and Alan Morrison. And as usual, it's great. I would wish I would come in here and announce Celtic having a signing, eh? But in the words of Delamite, nothing ever happens. Nothing happens at all. We just put the needle returns to the start of the song, and we all just mess along like before. Alan, how are you today?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm waiting for the next musical metaphor. Yeah, I can't wait.
I've got a couple today. Don't worry.
Dimitri and Max Headroom. I'm all in for this.
Lloyd, how are you today?
I'm good. Started my packing for my holiday next week, and I'm already 3 kilograms over. So, hi, great.
Where are you going on holiday?
I am going back to Malta, like where I was last year. So
nice.
I will not be on the next 2 weeks. So hopefully by the time I am back, hopefully Celtic have a signing, at least. If anyone can actually see me right now.
You can see you right now. I'm going on holiday next week as well. I'm going to Santa Ponza. So if anybody's in Santa Ponza for next Wednesday on, you'll either find me in Jinky's Bar or the Dubliner. You can buy me a pint if you want. Or I'm more than welcome to get by pints of Heineken. Would be very, very nice. Now, earlier on the day, lads, I asked you what Celtic player you would like to make you a sandwich. Just a wee bit of fun since we've got no signings to talk about, right? So, Lloyd, which Celtic player would you like to make you a sandwich and why? And what type of sandwich would it be?
Do you know, I've been thinking about this all morning since you said that, and I'm like to myself, who in that squad would make a great sandwich? And there's only one guy that comes to my mind because he's got great buns of steel, and that is James Forrest.
Right, okay.
Now,
so what would be on your sandwich then?
Like I said to you all in the chat, I am a bit of a greedy sod when it comes to food, so as much filling as possible. So I do like a bit of roast chicken or chicken tikka with some cheese and then all sorts of salad topped off with some lovely mayonnaise. Yum, yum.
Alan, yours? What would be your sandwich?
Well, I'll tell you who I wouldn't want to have a sandwich from. You know, Roddy McDonald and his wee Australian brother, Scott McDonald. I wouldn't want anything from the McDonalds. So that would be out. I wouldn't want anything from Mikey Johnson because I'd be sitting around for hours waiting for delivery.
I like that.
I can't do any better than what was in the the WhatsApp comments. I think this isn't mine. Okay, I'll put my hand. This wasn't mine. But I think it was Chris actually. He said it would be Dies in Maida, because who doesn't like Tavernier on toast? I thought that was brilliant. Tavernier on toast wins it for me. Dies in Maida.
Well done, Chris. I like that one.
That was very good, Chris. David Ferguson comes on. Is this comment going to come up, or am I completely?
Yeah.
That's fine,
yeah,
right? Kev, you stole that for Tony Haggerty. Apologies to Tony Haggerty, but I didn't ken he had already done this. So absolutely apologies. So great minds think alike. That's all I'm going to say. Now, I quite laughed at Jerry's. Jerry's obviously preparing for his show next week. So Jerry's he wanted Dyson Maeda to deliver his sandwich quick, and it would be corned beef and spicy bikers with brown sauce. I've got no idea what spicy bikers is.
You know what that means?
Listen, I love brown sauce on a sandwich or anything, but with bikers, That just does not go.
What is bikers? You need to inform me what
bikers
bikers
crisps.
is. Is it crisps?
It's crisps.
Ah,
It's like pickled onion crisps you can get.
Right, okay. I didn't actually know that. Yared, he would want Seagrass to make him a sandwich, just to see if he could get the Vegemite right, since he's now got an Australian girlfriend. And me, I would like Tony Ralston to make me a sandwich, because I think he's quite a simple guy and make a great ham for the delicatessen in Tesco's, some Cathedral City cheese, some kettle salt and vinegar crisps on Tiger breed with full fat iron brew. I think that's what Tony Ralston would actually deliver to you.
Yeah, it'd be a builder's sandwich, wouldn't it?
Definitely, it'd be one of them. I'd be one of them in a great wee piece box, a massive piece box. Aye, thick cut. Oh, aye, that's getting me hungry now. Oh, who else? Sean says he would like James Forrest to make him a sandwich, because it would just be bread with butter with salt and vinegar crisps, because after he turned up to the Scotland camp with a black bag, he obviously styles himself, and that's all he'd be able to make. That's what Sean says in the thing with. Right, let's move on. Brendan Rodgers has came out and he's been kind of scathing about Danny Kelly and also Rocco Vata. I'm just trying to close some tabs here, see if it improves my connection. Right. So what he says about Rocco Vata and Danny Kelly, he says they've been offered great contracts. Rocco Vata was offered to be the third choice striker, and he turned it down to go to Watford. Danny Kelly's been offered what Rodgers calls a value deal. I don't know if that's like Tesco's value sandwiches. No 100% sure, but he says it was a value deal. And if he wants to move on, then it's up to him. Alan, we're in a bit of a bind here, eh? I mean, Rocco Vata is getting offered the chance to be the third choice striker in the first team squad. He's not really kicked a ball for us, eh? But he's decided to go to Watford, eh? I think that, for me, I don't know the ins and outs of Rocco Vata's situation, but at his age, being offered to be the third choice striker at Celtic, surely that was enough for him to stay, if he had any intention of staying whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, every there's an individual story to be told, and there's a lot to unpack as regards the broader question of youth players at Celtic and why don't they often make it is a almost an all-dayer as a topic, I suspect. So very, very quickly, I think, as I say, I think there's individual things going on here. I think with Vata, the economics of it is where I would always start. Usually it's about money. Because he's going cross-border as far as UEFA are concerned, the fee that Celtic will get for Vata is pretty much it's kind of set in stone. It's like a basic formula, and it's not an awful lot of money. And so, especially clubs in England, that are cash rich, is that they can make the deal happen easier by giving the agent a lot of money. For example, would be just plucking something out of thin air. And if your agent is agitating for you to leave, then and because they're getting a good deal out of the move, then that kind of helps to speed things along in that direction. And essentially they'll probably be going for a lot more money. Essentially, again, how much money can Celtic offer a player who's really played a few minutes in the first team versus an English club, even in the Championship? I mean, there was players in the Championship last season on wages of over 100,000 a week. Some of these are legacy Premier League contracts, of course, but it is a tough market for Celtic to compete against. So I would say mostly it's down to money. The other thing that I would say is that, again, strategically, if you want to think of it in terms of big picture stuff, is, Scotland in general just doesn't have a footballing environment that allows the development of young players. The Premier League is a small league because of the split and relegation and so forth. In European places now, every game pretty much counts for something. Clubs don't want to play young players. And the Scottish Football Association and the SPFL have failed to provide a structure for young players to play competitively. They abandoned the reserve league, and the only option that's been offered under duress is the Lowland League option, which clearly, with it being the fifth tier, and remember, Scotland's a small country. Once you get down to tier 5, that's pretty dreadful. They shouldn't. A country the size of Scotland shouldn't even have a fifth tier. In all honesty, most serious leagues in Europe have got two professional full-time divisions, and that's it. Even France and so forth, and then it's sort of regional and more part-time. So, but anyway, long story short, it'll be a combination, I suspect, of money and just a rubbish football environment, because the powers that be in Scotland have failed to create that environment and pathway for young players to come through.
It's quite difficult, and for all the stuff that you actually mentioned. For me, the biggest thing, Lloyd, last year is when our strikers and wingers, more than likely last season, weren't firing, and the team was struggling, that Rocco Vata didn't really get a look in to bring on for Rodgers to actually use for the bench, whereas Rodgers went to Danny Kelly a couple of times and bring him on in games like the game at Tynecastle when we were 6-0 up against Dundee. Kelly came on and got some minutes in his legs. So that comment for Rodgers sort of like surprised me, that he was willing to give Rocco Vata the third place, the third striker berth in the Celtic squad. Now, that's not to say that what Rodgers says was actually true. It could be he just wants a young player to stay. But as Rodgers says in that interview with a newspaper that I'm not going to name, he's worked with young guys. He's worked with young players at Chelsea. He's came through the youth academy and that at Chelsea. And I think this is a scathing comment, or a comment which shows where Rodgers' head is, and it shows where Rodgers is constructing these deals, and who the money men are offering this money on Rodgers' recommendation. What Rodgers actually says was, I know the level that these players are at, and exactly. I know the work that they need to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a kind of scathing comment on, not on the players themselves, maybe where their agents are. Maybe what their agents are actually telling them.
Yep, 100% true there, Kev. I think sometimes these guys are getting badly advised by the agents, and it's one of these things where they just chase the money rather than the actual progression of their career. Now, Rocco Vata, for all we know, he could have been the third choice striker this season. No, we'll never know. Maybe Rodgers is playing him a bit of a compliment by saying that, and it's the same with Daniel Kelly, with the comment that he made about him as well. Is, well, he's not looking to sign a new deal. We've offered him a decent enough wage for the level that he's at. So if he's not going to sign it, he won't be involved in pre-season. Now that's going to hamper that boy's career, because he might get a great move, but if he's not going to be doing a pre-season this season after a breakthrough when the first team, scoring a goal, making an impact in the season, then where does that leave him as well? We always talk about bringing the youth through at the club, but if they're also going to hold the club to ransom, then maybe it is such a good thing if some of them do move on, because there's no point paying players that aren't proven at any level over the odds. It's established first teamers like McGregor that have earned that right to get the wages that they get. Now, I'm not saying Kelly and Vata and that aren't good players, but what have they done yet? They're only at the start of their first team career. They're not anywhere near the end of it yet.
The way I look at it, I say as if yesterday badly with JP. I want Celtic to, like, if Rodgers wants a 25-man squad, I want 17 first-team players and the rest made up of youth, because I do think it will help the national team. It will help the national team, because when you look at countries like Denmark, we come up against the Copenhagens and the Ferencvaros of the world. They've got a better core group of homegrown youngsters or homegrown players that are actually there. Who that's not coming for me.
No, that's me and the fish fan.
Oh, a fish fan.
Fish
Oh,
fan.
what would you
That
get?
could be on a sandwich as well.
Fish on a sandwich. Off. Get away. That's wrong. That is so wrong. Fish on a sandwich. I think they've got a better technical and tactically group of players that have came through, a core group that they can add to. And I think Celtic need to get to that level. And this is why I would be more interested in keeping guys like Kelly and Lowell in and around the first team, because that's the way that we've got. That's the way that we've got to go. But Alan, these guys have got to see a pathway, and at the moment that pathway is no there. And Kelly, for example, I'm having a look at Kelly, right? And I'm sure Rodgers could go to Kelly. By the way, you're going to get this. We'll have a look at your contract if you break in, blah, blah, blah. It's more than likely Matt O'Reilly's going to leave. So you're going to be in and around this squad every single week, and you are going to get minutes. When, like, it's likely we'll sign Bernardo, but then he takes a Bernardo role on the bench, that you're going to come on and you're going to get minutes. I didn't think Rodgers can promise him much more. What he promised Vatter, what he promised Kelly. I can't see him how he can offer them any more, apart from a carte blanche, I'm going to play you every week, which he's not going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just dish out minutes. It's not a charity in the sense of the playing side of things is not a charity, right? And it's elite level professional sport, so your players have to earn the right to get those minutes. But I do think when I look at it and reflect on Celtic's transfer dealings or lack of, as it's become, over the last few years, and probably forever in some senses, but certainly the last few years, where would a Rocco Vata, even if he ends up not succeeding and not holding down a place, would he really be worse than somebody like Yang? I mean, would giving Danny Kelly minutes really be any worse than Kwon? You know what I'm saying? You've got these players,
Exactly.
and to
Exactly.
me,
I'm with you here, Alan.
I don't see the point in spending 2-3 million on players that come in and fail when you've got kids that are going to an equal chance of either making it or not. So why don't you try them? But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't see these players every day in training, etc. So maybe they are just miles off it. I mean, the bit I have seen of Vata, he looked a promising player. But I think, again, there's an individual story behind each one. And I think the whole dramas around Vata and his people will probably have got a lot to do with it, rather than the actual player's ability itself not being the only factor, as it were. So there's a different story to be told. But as I say, I think the club, we waste a lot of money on players when actually, we sent I know Montgomery had a terrible injury last season, but would Montgomery filling in at left back occasionally really have been any worse than Bernabei? That's the sort of thinking that
Exactly.
I don't think we've seen enough of
Exactly.
from the club, to be honest with you. We waste a lot of money because of that.
There's no strategy there. There's no strategy to bringing young guys into the team. And I'm the host. I'll chuck a wee cat amongst the pigeons here. Is it because of guys like us, Lloyd, that just want new shiny things that we only give you for a chance?
That could be a strong possibility, because at times, as well as supporters, we're impatient. I mean, you can see either comments or that on social media and that we're all waiting for this first signing of the summer, and as the days go on, it's right, when are we going to make first signing? When are we going? So yeah, there is a bit of impatience, and if you're chucking a young guy in the team acting like that, then it's like, well, are you really giving them a fair shot? Because Alan made a great point. Why sign players like Yang, Home, that, if the same kind of players are already there at the club? Why waste that money when they're already there? So these guys obviously bring something different, but the youth has to be given a chance. But this is kind of where you're hoping that Barrowfield, once it's all done up with its nice new shiny beams and all that it starts producing.
My joke didn't land there because my mic
I was going to say you were muted there.
We've got steel where others haven't.
Yes.
We build it and they will come, because we got steel, not on the cheap. There we go. Right. On we go. Move on.
Yeah, you've got to build the squad from strong foundations, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. We might buy some players. I'm sure we've got some concrete offers in. I can go on for hours, by the way. But no, listen,
As long as it's no that concrete, eh?
Yeah.
The jokes are all coming out now, aren't they?
I know.
Right. We need to move on with this talk of concrete and all of that. Paddy Laverty comes in. Kevin, your signal makes you look like a poor man's Max Headroom. Well, hopefully it's changed now, because I've re-changed my camera settings, and I have been decorating. This, as you'll be likely know, this is my bedroom. This is my wallpaper. I love Toy Story. I really do.
Nothing wrong with Toy Story.
Oh no. If you didn't cry at Toy Story 3, there's something up with you. That's all I'm saying. Maniacs says Vata isn't good enough to be the third striker at Celtic. Well, we'll never know now. We will never know now. He comes back in. I think we're talking about Biker Chris. I mean, we have no other signings to talk about yet. We are going to get on to what Rodgers says in that interview with a paper that we only mentioned. Brian Conway comes in about the two young laddies leaving, even though Kelly's no left yet. It looks more and more likely. He says he's 100% behind the manager on this. Even though we haven't got anything to argue with, Rodgers' comments that he says, I've worked with young players and I know the level they're at, for me is very telling. I think that's we've got to trust Rodgers in this. He's went, that's a level that they're at, and we've got to trust the manager in this. Maestro 95, I've got soul, but I'm not a kipper. Did you see that video?
That's a good Killers reference, that.
It is, did you see the video on the other night, though?
I know, it's...
Aye.
We can be disappointed a wee bit in that, man, but just give them the 5 minutes of fame.
We'll let them off, eh?
Aye.
Raja, exactly, Alan. The B team guys have to be promoted, even if it means losing the league once every 3 years. Controversial. Otherwise, we'll never know how good these kids are. How do you two, Alan, I'll come to you with that. How do you sit with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's unpalatable for Celtic fans, obviously, and it is difficult. Celtic operate in an odd environment. They've got plenty of capability to give young players time in matches in the Scottish Premier League. Frankly, they could do more of that, given the standard of some of the opponents. But then we have to do this, occasional step up in Europe, which is a massive leap, and less likely to be able to do that. Then, I mean, I think it was I can't remember how many years ago now, but Ajax, I think when they built their they modernised the Amsterdam Arena, a massive infrastructure investment that they put into that. I think they got all their products delivered on time, and I think broadly ran to plan and all that. I know it's rare that can happen, but it does happen sometimes. Anyway, so they actually leveled with their fans and said, look, we're spending all this money on improving infrastructure. We don't have a lot of money to spend on players. We're going to play young kids. We might not win the league for 5 years, but that and that team, that young team that they built, were the ones I think they lost to Jose Mourinho's Manchester United in the Europa League final. I think they produced a really good crop of young players, but they took that approach, but they were open and honest with their supporters, and they kind of bought into it. And I'm not suggesting Celtic aren't really in that sort of position, but and as I say, I don't think you can play youth just for the sake of it. So the situation that Rodgers has got with the youth players at Celtic is that they've been in the B League for, is it 3 years now? 4 years, something like that. So there's been no reserve team football. So there's a whole cadre now of players from the age of, say, 15 to 19, what have you, that have come through now. And the only option they've really had is B team football against students and so forth. It's not a great pathway, as we say, into first team football. So there was a bit of a change of approach last season. Two players that were identified as being promising were sent off to Austria to play in the Austrian Bundesliga 2 for, I think, Admira Wacker. And that seemed to work out well. The goalkeeper and I think Matt Anderson, the left back, if I remember correctly, and he ended up being in the team of the season for the league, and by all accounts had a good season. So to me, the next step then is if he's good enough to be a starter at that level, in Austria, he should be given potentially be given minutes in your the squad the way you described it, Kevin. For Celtic, the other pathway that they need to use is the sort of English lower leagues pathway. Because we saw it with McGregor all those years ago at Notts County. He was battling in a team that was at the bottom of League Two. Played 42 matches for Notts County with Jack. I think Jack Grealish and him were in the same side. And last season we had Bosun Lawal at Fleetwood, very similar, and he got rave reviews there. So that is a tough school, right? That is a tough school to learn in. League One, League Two football in England. The technical standard might not be great, but in terms of the physicality, the relentlessness, 46 games, cup matches, all the different trophies that they have, it's a tough baptism, that. So again, I would love to see Lawal come back and be given a chance, to prove himself at least as a squad player. So I think Celtic are trying to develop these alternative pathways. I don't think the B team in the Lowland League is a success.
Nope.
There has to be a different way. The football authorities don't seem interested in providing young Scottish players with that pathway. So Celtic have to kind of, become creative about how they give those players meaningful minutes and meaningful football at a decent level. And that's what they need to continue to do for the kids that are that are off that level.
I would pull out the Lowland League, and I would become the Harlem Globetrotters and go and play academies in England and all Europe. That's what I would do personally, and send boys that you reckon could be nearly first team ready on loan. I didn't understand the link with Big Bosan going to Birmingham City, going back to the league that he's just played in. I didn't understand that link whatsoever. I don't think that's right. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. If you Birmingham are a bigger club in Fleetwood, but he's going back to play at the same level. No, if he's going on loan, it's a championship side that he is going on loan to. Mm-hmm. He is stepping up a level. I would rather keep him with us. Truthfully, I would.
On that, Kevin, that would be the natural progression you would think for the player in his development to up the level, because obviously if we're looking at him as a squad player, we're wanting him to come in the squad for the league games, cup games. We're obviously going for these trophies, and then also we're trying to develop Champions League players as well. So if he has got to play at championship level, that is the start of it, because that's the type of players we at least want to sign.
Mm-hmm. Lloyd, I'm going to bring you back to that question. Would you take losing a league title a league title like our good friends Ajax? I say that with a right dose of sarcasm there, in case anybody gets a bit uppity in the comments that I says our friends at Ajax. Would you accept losing a league title every 2 or 3 years if we bring through a crop of good young players?
I don't think I would accept losing a league title, because obviously that is mainly what we compete for every season with another club. But you look at the League Cup, why the early stages of that you're not putting the young guys in the team? Andy Lee makes the exact same point. Mm-hmm. League Cups, Scottish Cup, early stages, right? Maybe 45 minutes, 60 minutes. Get these young guys in, see what they've got, because they'll create the partnerships with the established first team players. That's why your likes of McGregor, Forrest, they're there to help bring these players through as well. And obviously, you've seen the restructure this summer, the whole youth setup with Arnold Day becoming, I think it's first team. It's like a development first teamer to bring youth players into the first team. Then obviously McManus has stepped up and Johnny Hayes has came in. So there is things going on in the background regarding the youth players. But I would be using the cup games as a platform for them to play on. And if not, like Alan said, maybe lower leagues England, so that way they've got that competitiveness in them. Right, because the fifth tier of Scottish football is just it's not going to cut it at all for MD. And I think you've seen that the last few years.
Is there more a chance now that could happen, Alan, especially in the League Cup, because we've now got 8 Champions League games? That you might have to rotate the squad in the League Cup more than what we've previously been used to.
Yeah, I mean, even most home league games. To be honest with you, I mean, there's no reason that Celtic, because they're a very financially well-run club. There's no reason why you can't supplement alongside very well scouted, smart signings that are of a quality that mean that you're more than likely not going to win the league anyway, and then supplement it with the best of your youth players, and give why can't somebody get an hour or half an hour at home to Dundee? You know what I mean? It's like, to me, I mean, Bosun Lowell's 21 years old. We're not talking about a 16-year-old kid here. He's 21. He's been a standout in a physically and probably emotionally tough league in England, maybe technically not the best. I think he's done, to me, that audition, like McGregor's, should be enough to get him some a chance, at least a chance. And a chance to me would be, you might start him at home to Ross County, you might start him at home to Dundee or what have you, in a league game, and it might not work out, but you won't know until you actually put them in the situation. I think he's done enough to prove, in that loan spell, that the capability is there, as well as the international experience that he's got for Ireland as well. So yeah, but again, I don't believe Rodgers or anyone at Celtic deliberately doesn't pick young players out of spite or anything like that. If they don't believe they're good enough, then I suspect that was what it comes down to. But to me, as I say, there looked to be at least two players that were put into what I'd call, good development loans last season, that they've come back. Why don't they at least get a chance? And that'd be the way to go. I mean, to your point, Lloyd, I think Darren O'Day's got a new role as player development manager, I think is his job title. So his job, we've now got somebody whose job it is to find development pathways for the most promising young players. So hopefully, these things take time, right? These things, you don't get immediate results with this. You need to see how this role pans out in terms of placing those young players in places that get them that development that actually will push them forward.
I'm going to go into one of my wee parallel universes, right? I'm going to go into one of them, and I hope we're not having the same conversation about Francis Turley in 2 years' time. Because if we are, then Darren O'Dea has actually failed in that role right away. That's my parallel universe. Like, the guy just played half an hour for Celtic. Rodgers says he was quite good in that, right? But if he becomes that sort of next great hope, we can't be having the same conversation about him in 2 seasons' time. Because then we have utterly failed as a football club once again. Write your own story. Bringing through youth is a shiny new thing. I think it is. I like seeing a youth player getting a chance. They seem to get hammered for the stands more easily than what some of your project signings actually get. Seamus McKenna, lose the league. You kidding? That's the thing, like. Kevin Hamsey comes in with the exact same thing. No place. Oh, I see what you did there with the place, spelt as a fish. I like that. For talking about losing leagues, I really do like that. Strange Love the Doctor. We need to reconfigure the balance of the squad to focus our resources on 2 first-choice players for every position, supported by the youth. Unused players need to move on. I think we could get rid of about 8 or 9 for our first-team squad, and they wouldn't actually be missed. Ridiculizer. I'd like to see the big Bosun in the first team this year. Looks silky for a big laddie. Haven't seen enough, but from what I have, he looks like to have massive potential. I think that's what you say, Alan. He's had a tough loan spell. He needs to make that step up in the way. He's had the ground in there. And FTB, thanks for supporting the channel. Good afternoon, Hoops Troops. Thank you very much for that as well. Now, we'll move on. Did I not start that comment about the transfer rumours? Aye, there it is. Right. Martin O'Neill. Wonder if it is the Martin O'Neill. If it is, good afternoon, sir. Any transfer rumours, lads, preferably ones with more solid foundation than a Copeland Road construction project. It's quite funny. I noticed one of the Celtic blogs.
I've seen that myself, actually.
It's a slow news day. It's a slow news day.
Is that the cleaner getting the old transfer thing out the bin again?
And also, I'm going to say this, and if I get proved wrong, I get proved wrong. I got a text just before we came on air to say that Aston Villa finished goalkeeper will be our new goalkeeper.
He's not finished yet. He's not finished. He's not finished.
He's only 22.
Oh, boom, boom, boom. I'm quite glad we went full Celtic Darady. I'm really quite glad. I'm really quite glad. Aye, Stevie, sorry, mate. I'm trying to do 3 things at once. For one, Stevie, it's quite difficult to do this sitting on a bed, trying to get a decent Wi-Fi signal. The comments are glitching everywhere, and Lloyd's cracking jokes about fish. It's very, very difficult. But
that's what I'm here for.
but I'm trying my best. Right. Brendan Rodgers says in a paper that we're not going to mention that he hopes to have a couple of signings before we go out to America, which is sometime next week. So when you go, will you send back some signings for America, Celtic? What's the chances of this happening, Alan? I tell you, I had another music pun coming.
No insight in terms of specifics. The reality is, I think something you just alluded to there. And I said this last summer, sadly, is for me the first priority number one is we need to get about 8 or 9 players out the door, right? And now we've got a couple, and one's retired, but there's another 8 or 9 players that we need to get off. We can't have a squad of 40 players, right? So you need to get rid of. You need to get rid of a lot of players. Really, is number one. Having said all that, there was clear weaknesses last season in the squad. The squad was weaker than it was the season before, and now with Hart retiring, and those weaknesses not being replaced during last season, those issues in the positions that we can all rhyme off are still there. The money's in the bank. The positions that need strengthening are clear. Yes, we can make excuses about things like how difficult it is to get deals. The market is slower because of the Euros and the Copa America, etc. That is all true. But I thought we'd have a couple done by now, to be honest with you, because then people start to talk to me about, oh well, they want to reflect it in the after the year end, so the accounting window closed on the 30th of June, new accounting window open 1st of July. We want to book these signings in this year's accounting cycle. I don't understand all of that, I'll be honest with you, but that's not happened either. So I've got nothing specific, but I'm told that work is going on, that they're working hard on deals, etc., etc. So I guess I'm just trying to be patient and positive, really. But it's a bit strange. It is a bit strange that we don't seem to, especially goalkeeper. I mean, goalkeeper to me should be almost the easiest position to recruit for, because every club in the world has got a number one, and that means that the number two isn't playing, right? Which means that you can only play one goalkeeper. So there's any given time there should be a lot of goalkeepers who want to be a number one, and even if they're at a big club and on good money, they would fancy being number one at Celtic rather than number two at, I don't know. Well, you mentioned Aston Villa, Newcastle, or whatever. Even big moneyed clubs like that. So, and given the fact that Joe Hart made public his intention to retire in February, but I suspect the club probably knew before we did. So they've had like nearly over 6 months since to try and sort this problem out, and we don't seem to. We've had lots of names for sure, but we haven't sorted it out. So I don't understand why that is as it is. If we're being careful and being cautious and getting wanting to get the right signing, that's fine. I get that. But I suppose what I'm most concerned about is normally when Celtic are looking at a particular position, there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of background noise about, this left back, that left back. There's very little chatter about names for any other position apart from goalkeeper. So I'm a little bit confused, but I'm trying to stay patient and positive.
It's quite hard. Maestro 95 comes out with a class reference. Are the board lost in the supermarket? I think they're more lost in the middle aisle in Lidl's, and we didn't actually ken what we want. They've got that much choice, and they've been offered. You go into Lidl's for a pint of milk, and you come out with a socket set. That's what happens when you go to Liddell's. And I think your board are kind of like that. And the reason I kind of think we're like that, Lloyd, is the amount of names that we just keep on getting linked with time and time again.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw a link with the Benfica left back who we were linked with last year.
It's the same
Who went to Benfica, then went on loan to Hoffenheim for the second half of the season. I can't remember the guy's name. I didn't write it down, but we've been linked with him again. And similarly, that we're actually talking to them about that at the same time we're talking about Bernardo. And we didn't want to pay the money that they want for Bernardo. So there seems to be a pick and mix, a hit or miss, like strategy. If there doesn't seem to be a strategy to what we're actually doing. And the fact is, every year we have this conversation actually proves that to me, that we haven't got a strategy. And we're going to end up with maybe three guys on our books. Then maybe another three coming towards the end of the window, main likely loans to buy. And they'll all be recommended by agents, and there'll be there's been no forward planning whatsoever.
No, well, it certainly comes across that way. There's been no forward plan because, well, end of the season was 25th of May. We're now on the 12th of July. We've brought no one in. We've lost Ida, Bernardo, and Joe Hart, and no one's been replaced yet. And obviously, the speculation's going about. Obviously, Atalanta's put the £15 million bid in for Matt O'Reilly, which was rejected, and then a Russian team are looking at Rio Hatate. So the only transfer rumours you're getting at the moment is outgoings rather than incomings, whereas we're all looking, who is this new number one going to be? Because surely, and I think me and Paul John discussed this last week as well, you cannot go into that first weekend of the league season as your goalkeepers being Scott Bain and Benjamin Siegrist, because one doesn't want to be there.
I'm not reading out the team that I read out yesterday.
No, please don't. That was just
spoken therapy about me reading out that team.
I mean, I know we joked about sandwiches and that earlier on, but if you're having Bain as your number one in the first game of the season, then the butter's definitely spreading that sandwich with that man. So it's just all that money's in the bank. We've done the financial end of the year on the 30th of June. Obviously, we're planning to use some of that money this summer, but there's no serious links. Are we waiting for the Euros to finish, for these players to go away on holiday, come back, and then start signing them? Because by that point, the league season will have kicked off.
What I will actually say, if we're signing the third choice goalkeeper for Aston Villa, he is not our top target. We have missed our top target.
No, exactly. It can't be the top target
because of whatever is going on. And that's not to say the boy's not going to be a decent goalkeeper.
No, but
if that is your top target, we're in bother as well.
Your top target should be a keeper at least wanting to leave the certain club that he's at, obviously abroad somewhere, or else a decent. If you're going to want to shop in the Premier League, then it's going to be a number 2 goalkeeper at least, but not a number 3 goalkeeper. No chance. That can't be a top target.
I mean, it's not going to surprise me, Alan, if we turn up to the States, right? And the couple of faces are Ida and Bernardo, because they seem the ones that might be easier to get done, even though we seem to be taking a hell of a long time to get Bernardo over the line, because we're arguing about possibly, like, I don't ken how many ginger bottles that we're going to give him for it. I do not know what we're actually arguing about, but it seems like we've got a problem with the price. It seems like what they value the player, what we value the player, there seems to be a big problem there. What I'm actually looking at the areas, right? But Lloyd spoke about the goalkeeper. We talked about the left back. We noticed a drop off in Kyogo last year, right? And I would want another winger in early, because I believe that if we get our areas into the box quicker, get the balls quicker into the box, is going to benefit Kyogo more. Because we are not going to sign, unless Ida is that centre forward, that is going to be our first choice striker, we are not going to sign a striker to replace Kyogo. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is an area that it doesn't, that, that striking position in terms of, will we get better than Kyogo? I would be very surprised. Having said that, clearly last season we didn't play in a way that made the best use of him. And I think I would frame it in that way, rather than he in terms of his own performances. I mean, it was always a tough act to follow Postecoglou's team because of almost the precision with which the team played in terms of the sort of positionalization, the system that they had, the timing of the runs, the overloads, the shape of the team with and without the ball. It was all so well drilled that we built a team, actually not necessarily with great players, it has to be said, but it was a classic case of system being stronger than a lot of the individuals. And Celtic got to a stage where they basically were, overwhelming every other team in the league. And Kyogo, and the way that the striker had to operate was to pretty much stay within the width of the posts, not to come too deep, not to come too wide, and be making runs, across the goal, looking for hard, fast balls across the 6-yard box. I'm oversimplifying, but broadly, that's the style of play, and that's the kind of way that Postecoglou wanted Celtic to play, and and Kyogo was a striker absolutely made to play in that way, and he was incredibly successful. Last season, I think it was a combination of playing in a slightly different way, Rodgers having slightly more expansive requirements of his striker in terms of getting involved in play. But I think probably the most I don't think we were playing. It's not like we were playing a completely different game. It's not like we went from 4-3-3, high pressing, and overloading in wide areas and getting the ball into the box, and then moving to some sort of 3-5-2 long ball game. We didn't. It wasn't that. It was a subtle tweak in terms of playing style. But the thing which was the feature of Celtic's play that was most degraded last season was, and you already mentioned this, Kevin, is the wing play. The standard of the wing play went down enormously. From having Jota and Abada, or Jota, Maeda, and Abada, combinations of those three. We ended up with Yang, Kun, and Palmer. And Palmer's numbers are actually really good, but he's incredibly inconsistent, and he's really somebody who generates a high volume of shots and a high volume of chances. But if you look at quality as averaged by, average expected goals per shot or average expected assists per chance created, they're much lower than what Jota was producing. So Jota was also a volume guy, but Jota's chance created good quality chances, took better quality shots than Palmer. And so, launching ball, cutting in, and then launching a ball to the back post isn't the sort of ball that's going to get the best out of Kyogo, right? It's just simple. This is not how playing to his strength. So, long story there, but I don't believe that Kyogo. I think he's still, if you watch him, as I'm sure you do during the games, he's still making the runs. He's still, sharp as a tack in the box. But if the ball's not coming to him, then he's not going to give you anything else beyond that, really. So it's going to look like he's not contributing. But I don't think that's his fault. I think it's predominantly the lack of wing play, and I think the system was just tweaked a little bit. I think Rodgers would prefer a more all-rounder as a striker. But coming back to Bernardo and Ida, I mean, I like both players. I saw a lot of upsides in both of them. But let's be honest here. They were both backup players. They were both players that generally were on the bench. Ida was the second striker to Kyogo. Bernardo was the second backup to Haitati and O'Reilly. And it's not like we're in a situation we were with Carter Vickers and Jota. Carter Vickers and Jota were clearly, by a distance, the best players in their position. When they came to the club and we made the loan signing permanent. That's not the case with these two. So I wouldn't be gutted if we didn't sign them. I'd rather we need to find more of the Carter Vickers Jota standard of signing rather than more players to clog up the bench, who, by the way, will then stopped getting game time for the younger players. So that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't make any sense. I can understand why. I think we're in a wee honeymoon period with Bernardo and Ida because of the last game of the season, the last minute of the cup final, and they've done really, really well. I always thought I think if you can go back 6 months, I was always quite confident that we would sign Bernardo. The reason being because he looked a Brendan Rodgers type player. I always thought there was something there that Rodgers likes in a player. I mean, we spoke about the first 6 months of the season going, does he ever pass the ball forward? I ken that was one of your hungries, Alan, that he didn't seem to make any forward passes and he kept the ball safe. But that seemed to improve when he went through that wee purple patch. With O'Reilly likely to be leaving, I would fully expect Bernardo to get more game time, and I think that's what Rodgers sees. There'll be more of a progression in that way. With regards to the wingers, now you mentioned Palmer. Now Palmer really frustrated in the first part of the season. Palmer was a player that we got from a recommended agent, one agency that we use all the time. We're not going to get rid of Palmer and Kuhn, so we really need them to step up. We really need them to step up, Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on Palmer? I'm still sitting on the fence, even though his numbers are great. But I think I saw a guy who couldn't quite handle the magnitude of playing for Celtic towards when we went through that wee sticky spell and himself. And I think he sort of admitted that towards the end of the season, that he's got a lot to improve mentally.
Yeah, I completely agree on that one as well. I think his numbers are good for assists and obviously scoring, but there's still a question mark out for his style of play for me, because I don't think he helps Taylor much on that side. Going forward, good. Defensively, not so great, but is this because where he's came from, obviously trying to adapt to the new country, new culture? We need to take these things on board, obviously. And as you said, Kev, coming to Celtic, it's not like every other football club where you just walk through the door, and us supporters, we demand a lot of success right away. We do put a lot of pressure on the players as well. So maybe he's mentally not coped with that yet. So hopefully this pre-season, coming season, we do see a bit of difference in Palmer and Kuhn. Kuhn could be a very interesting one for me, because he's come in, big fee, came in January, German player, played at a decent level, obviously for his youth. So we've seen glimpses of Kuhn and what he can bring to the table. But are they still that type of Jota and Abada? Yeah, I don't think so. And this is the point that Alan obviously made with like Kyogo. Kyogo's obviously scored a few goals in pre-season so far. So it does seem
very Kyogo type goals as well.
Very Kyogo type goals. So it does look like we're starting to play to his strengths a little bit. But don't forget, not everyone's back in the squad. So it's going to be interesting when we go to America, and I'll quote what me and Jim said last week, these bounce games that don't really mean a lot, but you'll just get to see how the team will shape up, how they'll start playing. And you're wanting the best of Kyogo, and Kuhn and Palmer do need to start delivering for him.
What I would say, Alan, there was a game towards the end of the season against Livingston. We went to the Spaghetti Ad, one place that we want to be going next season, and I was right behind the goals, and Kuhn set up the first goal. Still didn't kind of ended up going in the back of the net, but he took on the full back. He got to the byline, and that was a point where I was, because you're actually quite close to the play. In that stadium away from home, you could. It was the first time I've actually noticed how quick his feet were to actually make that space. There was a tight area. There was hardly any space for him to move, and he actually sold the full back, managed to get to the byline, and he cut it back. And it was at that point I'm like, you should be doing that more often for us, Bill. You've got that in your locker.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of players, can end up at, like as Kuhn did. He was at Bayern Munich when he was a much younger player, purely based on one or two absolute standout attributes. And in Kuhn's case, he has got blistering pace, and that is something you can't train, you can't teach, you can't. You've either got it or you haven't. You can improve your decision making about when you use that pace, etc. Of course, but just having that raw material is something which will, the classic Scottish example is Oliver Burke. Ollie Burke was absolutely lightning quick, and he built. He's the most expensive Scottish player in history if you add up all the transfer fees that he went for to big clubs who bought him when he was young, simply because he was a big lad and he was really quick. And that combination of physicality and speed is enough to, get you a contract at the biggest clubs. But he's 24 now, Kuhn, and the reason that he's still not at Bayern Munich is because he's not been able to ally that speed with decision making and good technique. It's the same, with Rabbi Matondo at the other side of the city. He was at some seriously big clubs very young because he's just so fast. But you've seen he doesn't know what to do with the football most of the time, right? And Kuhn's a little bit like that.
Apart from when he gets shown inside by a South Korean winger and he pops one into the top corner.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it does happen. It does happen once a season. Yeah, but this is because it's just the way kids are coached. The kids, especially kids that are quick, they stand out. At grassroots level, at any level, when they're young, they stand out if they're really, really fast. Kids develop at different ages. If you're really fast and you're blasting past people, you're going to make an impression. And also, it means that you're probably less likely to learn good habits. Sometimes blasting at top speed with the ball isn't the right answer. Sometimes it means that you miss the obvious forward pass or what have you. So your decision making can sometimes be impaired if you're a really quick young player because dribbling is quite rare in top level professional football. You generally see many players that are capable of dribbling past top players. So, that speed has to be used very carefully. And if you've not learned that from a young age, so someone like Kuhn, he is the sort of player I would say Celtic need to be looking at in that he's in that market that I would call taking advantage of the inefficiencies of big clubs who hoover up a lot of these kids for reasons. And then, like Chelsea is a classic example. And then, they flood the market with these rejects, when they hit a certain age. And there are gems to be found in that market of the Premier League and Bayern Munich, people like that. They hoover up so many players that there is inefficiencies in that system. I just, when a player's main deficiency is decision making, I do worry because it's the hardest thing to coach. It's the hardest thing to train, and the older players get. I think you're not long into your 20s before your brain starts to become less able to start reprogramming itself quickly. Kids are amazing; they can reprogram their brains really quickly. But when they get to your 20s, it's less likely that you're going to be able to teach that cognitive development. You'll see that cognitive development. So 24 years old, bad decision making. We've seen it with Mikey Johnson. We've been here before. It ain't going to get any better. Would be my worry.
This is, you've mentioned Kuhn's been at Real Madrid. He's been at Bayern Munich. This is his last chance. He has to do well at Celtic to try and get back to that level that he was at younger. So this is probably a massive, massive pre-season for him. I still believe that we'll probably bring in a winger to challenge. I don't know what side it will be on, but I do think we'll bring in a winger to challenge that. I think it's an interesting conversation about Kyogo because I agree with Alan. I think the service that he looked a very frustrated figure at times when you're watching him at Celtic Park at times. He makes a run and he just stands there and puts his arms out and he goes, nobody actually see that run there, eh? We just weren't getting the ball quick enough. I think there was a big sticky spell for about November onwards. Then by the time we actually got our act together, it was more like grinding things out. And I'm hoping we actually see full Rodgers this season because I don't think we got it last season. I don't think we quite saw the way that he wanted his team to play, apart from maybe the game against Kilmarnock when we won the league. We grinded a lot of games out because we had the better players. We were very, very, what could I say, England-like. We were very cautious at times. We were.
No, I get what you mean by that, Kevin, obviously.
Aye. But Rodgers likes to keep the ball.
Aye.
He's a possession-based coach. He likes to keep the ball. That's the way. If the other team hasn't got the ball, then they're not going to score. That's the way that he looks at things. But I think we maybe see slight tweaks this year. And if we get the tweaks this year, I think Kyogo's on for a 30 goal a season. 30 goals a season, which he should be scoring with the service that he should be actually getting. And if he doesn't, then at this point next year, we'll probably have a conversation about is it maybe time for him to move on, that he's no suiting a Brendan Rodgers system. But I'll put my money on the new. If the Rodgers system clicks and we and the wingers that we bring in actually click as well, then Kyogo's fair to go goals a season, Lloyd, for me. He is.
Yeah, it should be. Definitely should be. It has been the last, 2 or 3 seasons that he's already been here, bar last season. So obviously you can tell last season it was down to the service that he was getting. And like you said, he just stood a frustrated figure most games last season. The hands going up, and that is very un-Kyogo-like. So you're expecting at least 30 goals from this season. But while also saying that is he also needs a competition. He needs a competition behind him. So obviously if you're going to bring the likes of Ida in, then you know what he's getting there. Obviously we've seen O still kicking about in pre-season, but we expect him to move on. So are we then going to look at another striker to bring in behind Ida and Kyogo maybe? Because the deal for Ida is obviously just dragging on now, and we're kind of just like that and get it done now.
It's not dragging on. We're only about a week away from him going on strike. So for him, Dana Van Hooijdonk and going on strike. Lads, it's been brilliant. I'm going to go through some of the comments here. The Urban Kulche, that couple better not be Ida and Bernardo. Paddy Laverty comes in and says, Turley's for Ardoin. All the mere reason, Paddy, that we should want him to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Marquis comes in and says, we'll be sitting here in 2 seasons' time asking why we haven't signed anyone yet. Well, it feels like we have the same podcast every close season.
I hope that's not the case.
Russell Conway makes a decent point. Foster was third choice at Newcastle. Doesn't it matter the league or squad position? It matters about the keeper. I do agree with that because goalkeepers are a strange beast where you'll get decent goalkeepers who never play just because of the way the goalkeeper position works. Paul Hogan, Crocodile. Adam Ida was third choice striker at Norwich and we want him. There's an awful lot of third choices coming in here. Robert Highland, if the Ida deal was proven complicated, just move on by, how do you say that, guys? Is it Miovski?
Miovski and Nipsgarden.
See, that Nipsgarden, we've been linked with him possibly the last 18 months. That's, again, why did we not just sign him in the first place? Andy Lee talks about Kyogo. Balls on the deck into the box. More chance of Dracula getting to a cross than Kyogo. That's maybe something that's got to change. Maestro, I'm just bringing this up for the Oasis reference. There must have irons in the fire. You got to roll with it. I'm just bringing that up for the musical reference there. The Pork Chop Express. Portugal's under-21 captain, FFS. And we're saying only worth 2 million, Scrooge FC. There does seem to be a bit of a problem here where we didn't want to meet Benfica's fee.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Patrick Docherty. Kevin, are you in the Celtic boardroom? That poster behind you looks like Celtic board members, financial dinosaurs. I think that's an insult to the dinosaurs in Toy Story. They've got more get up and go than the Celtic board. When it comes to I would fully expect Woody and Buzz Lightyear to get transfer deals done quicker than the Celtic board. Write your own story comes in again. We should get rid of Palma and Kuhn. That's not going to happen. No. We've invested too much money in there. Maestro again. Palma could have a great season if he knuckles down. That's what I think as well. I think there could be, to get his attitude spot on, I think he's got the raw materials to do it. Marquis comes in again, basically says, Palma and Koundé could do a job for us in the right system. Kaiser, listen to this one. Home is my top pick for the standout this year. Alan's nodding his head there in agreement.
Could be. I think I was actually more reflecting that this is where we are. We're now hoping that last year's players that couldn't make the bench are now going to be the standouts this season. I think that sums it up.
Talking head.
I think Rodgers likes him. So the kid's got a chance. He's a good player.
As Talking Head says, same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. John McVeigh, I fancy Tillio to come good. Probably in Australia, and I hope you're actually being sarcastic there, John. Sorry. And John McVeigh again, Rapid Vienna. I wasn't going to mention Nick Kuhn for Rapid Vienna because I was going full Celtic da. and I didn't like mentioning that team. Right, lads, this has been a brilliant. We've been out our hour. Sorry for the technical bits at the start, but I just couldn't help it. And see you all later. Have a good weekend, and just didn't be bams to each other. Bye.